So, in short, where does property management company come in? What do you actually do for the association?
We are the liaison between the elected board of directors and the community members. So we are the hired professionals to do the day-to-day operations for the association. That is collecting the dues, make sure they're billed out, receiving and processing any calls, questions, complaints. We report directly to the board of directors. The board of directors can vary in number. It's dependent on the association. And they are elected members of the association that are elected to make those decisions for the betterment of the operations of the association. So we report to them, we meet with them. There should be regular meetings, monthly or quarterly meetings. We assist in the annual meeting of the association, pay bills, and it can even go above that in overseeing employees. I mean, there's high rises. There's quite a bit of variances when it comes to associations and what those management needs are, because we can provide on-site management, concierge, and or off-site, which is a big standard in metropolitan Detroit area. The associations normally don't have on-site management. So it's a fast-paced industry that we enjoy, very customer service oriented. And just hope to, of course, keep that association operating healthy, as well as, supporting those homeowners, co-owners in living a peaceful enjoyment at their home, and ensuring we're assisting in that.
And I do know that there are some associations that try to self-manage because they want to save, but they figure, why would I pay someone that amount of money, whatever that contract is, when we can do it ourselves. I do know of a sub that they actually had a drop box, so you would put your payments in there, but then, one of the board members would check that drop box, deposit the funds and keep track, and they had a paralegal that was on the board that would help, and then they had an accountant at some point that would help. But the problem that you have is that when people stop paying and you have issues with vendors and things like that, or let's say your neighbor's not maintaining a property, you as your neighbor now have to go after your neighbor to maintain a property and or to pay their dues. And if they don't pay the dues, then what does that look like? What's the next plan? Do you take them to small claims court? Do you turn them over to a collection agency? But keep in mind, it's viewed, even though it's the board, it's viewed as neighbor against neighbor, and it's not a healthy place to live in. So unfortunately, in my association, we never decided the route of self-management. We had some people that considered it, but I've seen those subs that did self-manage, and they did okay for a little bit. But you're not going to stay on the board forever. And the next people that come on the board, they may not want to do that because it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and I commend those, but again, like you're saying, that separation of this is business and I'm your neighbor. So it can be very difficult in those times of debt collection, of notification of compliance issues, that neighbors can get very upset with neighbors. And here, this board member is just a volunteer. They're just trying to do their best for everybody that's at that association. Also, a thing to consider of why to have community management services is the checks and balances as well for the financial management. Not only is it great for that separation of neighbor and neighbor being that third party, also for the checks and balances of the operation for the incoming of dues and payments and the reporting of such. Making sure that there is a robust, transparent financial reporting is of utmost importance. I have seen in self-management where those reportings get very basic. And it may be just on the level of that individual not knowing how to report that data, but you really want to know where each check is written to and how does that correspond to your budget and those checks and balances that are in place. So I do encourage looking at the professionals of the industry for management. I'm not saying it can't be done. Absolutely can for self-management, but it is a thankless job, I hear.
It is.
Because it's a lot of volunteered hours that at a nominal cost you can have a management company do those duties for you. And they are insured. They are bonded. So that liability is being taken off and making sure that then the board that's elected can do those duties and direct for the operations of the association, and it can be very fluid and transparent.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a thankless job. Volunteer because no one gets paid. It's actually illegal to get paid if you are on the board because you are volunteering your time. So keep that in mind. And it is a lot of hours. Even if you do have a management company, sometimes it can be. If you have projects coming up and issues that arise that you have to meet more often. And then if you get attorneys involved and then you're talking with attorneys, and then if you get vendor issues, like with us, we got a landscaping company that comes out and every year you got another issue. And so all that stuff people have to deal with voluntarily on top of their normal jobs and their families and then whatever personal hobbies that they have, fitting all that in. So to have a management company to me just makes sense because it takes the stress off and it allows you to be neighborly with your neighbors without that hostility and someone mad at you because you sent them a letter saying, hey, you're behind on your dues. If you don't pay, we're going to take you to court. So it's something to think about. I mean, like you said, it is doable. I haven't seen any association so far sustain it over a long period of time, maybe some years, but not indefinitely. Because once those people who are self-managing, they move out of that subdivision or they decide they no longer want to be on the board, you have to hope that the people that are replacing them want to actually self-manage and spend that time, and some of them don't because it seems a little overwhelming. So, but yeah, I think that was probably a pretty good amount of topics. Is there anything you can think of that we may not have covered?
Now you got me. I think that, just trying to best educate yourself in the association never hurt. Looking at the financial strength, I would ask for financials to review. Having a healthy reserve is going to be very important, especially when you're looking at an association that may have been built 10, 20 plus years. They should have a healthy reserve balance. Again, that's going to differ on what amenities and what responsibilities are out there for that association, obligation of capital improvements and such. Seeing if there is a reserve study that's been done. And a reserve study is excellent because it will show where those dues should be set in accordance with the capital improvements that are needed for that association. And if an association's dues are real low, it's not always good. It's not always the best.
That's true.
So you want to see, are they market normal? And how is the finances of the association? And you can ask for those up front. The balance sheets and income statement are very reasonable requests. You would ask those from the seller.
Right. And the reason why she mentions that is because you don't want to move into a subdivision where, the dues may be $115 a month, and you're thinking, oh, this is great. Everybody else is like $200 or more. And then you move in and you find out 6 months to a year later that they were too low. They don't cover all of your operating costs, whatever the bills are. If you got a joint water bill if there's a roof repair that needs to come up, any of those things. And so now there's not enough money. Something is pending, and so now you got this assessment, or they're going to raise the dues, whatever that max is, because most bylaws have a cap on how much they can raise the dues each year on a monthly basis. But if they decide that we have to do an assessment and it's $50,000, you could be looking at an assessment. I know you mentioned about $50 more a month. It could be $100 or $200 more,
yes,
whatever that is. So it was low, but it wasn't sufficient. So we did have that issue at a short period of time. Before I got on the board, people weren't paying their dues, and they thought, well, let's lower the dues, and so maybe if we lower them, people will pay. Well, what happened is that after a little bit of time, we were $40,000 in the red. It wasn't enough money because they wanted to self-manage, but they really couldn't because nobody wanted to do it. So it wasn't enough money to pay because we had to have insurance, and we had to have a management company we paid for. We had to have landscaping and those type of things, and people weren't paying into it because they weren't paying their dues. So now we're not getting the money coming in, and then we have all this money going out, and so it wasn't enough. So when I got on the board, we had to raise the dues as much as we could. That was allowed in our bylaws, but then we also had to take 141 residents to court, yes, to pay their dues because they are required to catch up. And then after, I think it took us a year and a half, just shy of 2 years of taking them to court. And so we went from 75% of people not paying to I don't know, it's maybe 15 on the high side, but by the end of the year, most of those catch up. But we're no longer in the red, but we did keep raising the dues until we got them to the point that it was more than enough to pay. And then anticipate that we get, let's say 25% of the people decide not to pay. We still have bills that we have to pay, so we have to anticipate that we may not get everyone to pay. And then before we can get them to court to get that money back, we still have to cover it. And then we have to pay the attorney to go after them at this point. So then you have to calculate that in there. So long version of what she said was you want to check those financials. And that's the reason why, because you don't want to get in there just to find out that it's low now and it's going to shoot up later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just even with the, when you're looking at yourself in your purchase, you're now in an association looking at the big picture as well of their strength, mm-hmm, and the beauty that can come with it. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times, beautiful grounds, beautiful entrances, amenities, and higher quality expectations of upkeep and maintenance, mm-hmm, or living that can be accompanied with association living, and it's really can be a great quality in your, mm-hmm, investment. Mm-hmm.
I think so. I don't know if I'd move into a home that didn't have an association in the future. I'm not sure, because I like the idea of people maintaining their properties whether they want to or not. So, because I just have a mindset on property value.
Yes.
I'm a realtor, so some people don't think about it that way, but I do. Because at some point you probably are going to sell it. And even if I don't sell it, if I pass away, then my family's going to sell it. So somebody's going to sell it at some point. So you want to keep that value in your mind. But I think that's probably about enough for now. I don't think we probably covered everything. So if we've missed anything, you had any questions, concerns, there'll be information in the description of how to get a hold of myself or Kim at Casey Properties. Feel free to reach out and we'll try to answer those questions. If it appears that we need to do another session to come up with another topic, we'll see you back at that time. But thanks for stopping in. Thanks for visiting. I hope we answered your questions. I want to thank Kim.
Thank you
for her time. I appreciate it. And I don't know, I think I might have to have her with me all the time, because she is like a natural. Did a better job than me.
This was a pleasure. Thank you kindly so much.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. So thanks again, and we will see you next time.